So you can begin in crocodile, which is on your belly with the little hand pillow, and you're resting on that hand pillow, elbows bent. If that's not comfortable, or if you would rather start on your back, either is fine. Just come into some stillness and really feel your breath, your body on the floor. And really maybe just a sense of who you are and who you are becoming. So particularly if you're in crocodile and you're on your belly, it's sort of an inward looking shape or posture. But you could be on your back as well and get this sense of looking inward at your prayer hands. You could even bring your hands to prayer if you're on your back. And particularly if you're in the crocodile pose, this really helps us to ignite or bring into play more the parasympathetic nervous system. So settling our energy wherever we are today at the beginning of this class. And then if you're on your belly, roll over onto your back. And let's take our hands to our belly here. So knees bent, feet, soles of the feet on the floor, position of comfort. You could rest your knees together. Hands on your belly and just connect to your breath. As you inhale, we are nourished. And as we exhale, we can release what we don't need. Maybe what has been in the way of us becoming. So on your inhale, feel your belly rise. Not as much movement in the ribs, but it's a belly breath. So you'll feel the diaphragm pressing down, making the belly rise. On the inhale, and on the exhale, just release that. Now there'll be some movement in your basket and even all the way up through your chest and maybe even into your neck. But have this be facilitated by the diaphragm, the muscle of the diaphragm pressing down, using the diaphragm to do this diaphragmatic breathing. And on your next exhale, draw your buttocks together, squeeze your buttocks, and begin to gather at the pelvic floor. So the pelvic floor, the hammock of muscles from genitals to anus, right? And if you can, see if on each exhale, you can draw the pelvic floor up at the back. So as you squeeze your buttocks, you kind of draw the pelvic floor closer to your anus, draw that up and in. And then on your inhale, you just relax that. So we're going to build strength from the root chakra, the root of the body. And if you think about this, even metaphorically or even literally, if we don't have the strength in the pelvic floor, in the root of the body, then all of our energy just gets dumped out, right? It gets dissipated. So inhale and exhale, squeeze the buttocks together and draw the back of the pelvic floor up. You might even take a block. I kind of think this helps put a block between your thighs now. And don't over grip the block, but just squeeze the block as you do all those other actions. Buttock squeeze, back of the pelvic floor lifting, the perineum. And then we'll continue with that. But now see if you can concentrate the lifting at the front of your pelvic floor, closer to your genitals. Urethra, urethra. So inhale, relax everything, and exhale. Squeeze the buttocks and lift the whole pelvic floor. Lightly squeeze the block between your thighs. And then release. All right, 4 more rounds. Squeezing the block slightly, the buttocks, and lifting the whole pelvic floor. Up, up, pull it up away. Good. And then you can release that effort, just breathe sort of naturally. But now keeping the block between your legs and squeezing slightly, tuck your shoulder blades underneath your back body. So moving up into the heart now, and we want to support our heart from the back. So this is where building the muscles behind the heart are so important. So you have your shoulder blades underneath you now. Just lift your hips slightly with the block. So like a baby bridge, right? Just squeezing the block slightly. And feel your shoulder blades pressing into the floor. So there's the shoulder blades are pulled together slightly, right? And we support the heart with this musculature in the back of the heart. And then you can slowly lower down. And we'll try that a couple times. Just you'll slightly squeeze the block and you'll draw the pelvic floor up and you'll press shoulder blades into the floor. And then lower back down. Okay, so now you can take the block out from between your legs. And we'll try just lifting into a bridge. So pressing your feet, really grounding through your feet and gathering the pelvic floor. And as you press and lift your hips, press your shoulder blades into the floor. You can keep your arms just outreach, stretch, or outreached on the floor, long on the floor. Or you could just bring your fingertips up towards the ceiling in robot arms. Let's squeeze the imaginary block. Squeeze the buttocks, lift the pelvic floor, gather everything up, and then slowly lower down. Okay, now let's find the front of the pelvis, the abdominals. So place your heel of your hand on your hip pointers and spread your fingers wide. Take a nice inhale, and on your exhale, draw your hip pointers towards one another. Inhale, exhale, draw your hip pointers towards one another and start to zip from your pubic bone up towards your sternum. Inhale, exhale, squeeze the hip pointers towards one another. Gather your side waist in like you're bunching up, you know, corset. And and zip from pubic bone up towards the sternum. Now on your next exhale, see if you can do all of these actions together. You'll squeeze the imaginary block, draw your pelvic floor up, squeeze your buttocks, corset your abdomen, hip bones towards one another, and then release. Take a couple rounds. Great. All right. Now, let's see, we're going to see if we can keep all those actions really strong as we work in some other shapes. So you can roll to your side and press up or cross your ankles and rock up. And we'll come to all fours, cat-cow. So knees underneath hips and hands underneath shoulders. And on your inhale, stretch your collarbones forward. And spread your tail feathers. And on your exhale, round up towards the ceiling, gathering buttocks together, gathering the pelvic floor up, round up towards the ceiling. Hip pointers gathered towards one another. And inhale to the cow pose. Okay, so we're strengthening and stretching behind the heart, in the low back area, the pelvis. All right, so a few rounds of cat-cow on your own, but really gathering on the exhale, gathering pelvic floor, hip pointers towards one another. And if it feels okay, you feel like you have the ability to do this as well, draw the navel back towards your spine. So really gathering the abdominals in the front. Just a little more awareness in our cat-cow here today. Good. The next time you press up towards the ceiling, just bring your hips all the way back and rest on your heels or a blanket or a pillow between your legs in child's pose. And then you can inhale to stand up on your knees. Stand up on your knees and bring your right foot forward. Leave your left knee down on the floor and come into a low lunge. So lift the pelvic floor here. Okay. Now take your right hand, so right knee is forward, right foot is forward. Take your right hand and press it against the outside of your right leg. So resist with your right hand and then twist to the right towards the bent leg side. Gather the pelvic floor up, squeeze the buttocks, twist, pull your navel back towards your spine. Strong movement here. Okay, release, hands come down to the floor, set your right foot back, hips back, child's pose. Fill the whole cylinder of your breath with your breath, the whole cylinder of your body with your breath. And then inhale, come up to cow. Exhale, round up, cat. A few rounds here. Same thing, really feel for gathering the pelvic floor. We practiced it
very stationary. Now we're just practicing it as we move. Okay, and then next time you press up towards the ceiling, bring your hips back towards your heels, child's pose. Feel your whole breath. You feel your belly pressing against your thighs, and then inhale, stand up on your knees. Bring your left foot forward, hands to your front knee, and just come into this low lunge on the other side. So the back knee is down. Okay? And then press your left hand against the outside of your left leg. Get that isometric action going. Gather your pelvic floor. So if you feel like you slipped out, pull everything up, squeeze the buttocks here, twist to the left. As you press, twist to the left, pressing your hand into your thigh against your hand, squeezing the imaginary block between your legs, lifting your pelvic floor, draw your navel back towards your spine. Strength in the core, in the center, the core, who we are. And then come back to center, turn back to center, hands down to the floor, release your left foot back, left knee back, child's pose. Inhale to the cow. And then turn your toes under and come back into downward facing dog. Now squeeze an imaginary block between your thighs. Lift the pelvic floor. Now bend your elbows slightly and turn your triceps down towards the floor. And see what happens with the shoulder blades there, right? So there'll be a little bit of squeezing in of the shoulder blades there. Then re-straighten the arms. So working the muscles behind the heart to support the heart from the back. And as you inhale, start to walk your feet up towards your hands. Set your hips back, hands on thighs, and then press up to standing. Tadasana. Press up to standing. Okay. Now from here, come into just a Utkatasana with the knees slightly bent. And you're going to take a big step back with the right foot, high lunge, both hands on the front thigh, left thigh. So lifting the back leg up towards the ceiling and squeezing that imaginary block, and feel how that helps you to lift the pelvic floor. This is it. Yep. And on your next inhale, step forward, Tadasana. Drop the hips again, come into Utkatasana. Step the left foot back, hands to the right thigh, high lunge, lifting the back leg, squeeze the imaginary block, lift the pelvic floor. Inhale to come forward, stand up, Tadasana. So we'll go back and forth a few times from the Utkatasana, stepping the right foot back, high lunge, squeezing, holding, one full breath. Next inhale, you come forward, and then step the other foot back, left foot back, squeezing, lifting, strong. And then one after the first full breath, next inhale brings you back to Tadasana. Take 2 more rounds of that. And then we'll meet in Tadasana. Great. Now from Tadasana, step the left foot forward slightly as you step the right foot back and find warrior one. Hands on hips. Bring your elbows towards one another. Now you can feel as you bring your elbows towards one another behind you, how that activates those muscles behind the heart. Good. Now squeeze the imaginary block, squeeze your buttocks, lift your pelvic floor, and bring your arms into goalpost. Take the elbows a little bit higher than the shoulders. And then if it feels okay, you can reach the arms up, palms facing one another, or interlacing your fingers, releasing your index finger. Keep all the actions in the pelvis, strong legs, strong warrior. Good. Then you can let your arms float down to your sides as you open up into warrior two, lengthening your stance and opening up into warrior two. Good. Then turn your back foot, come back into warrior one. Release your hands down to your sides, lean forward and step forward, Tadasana. Okay, let's take the left foot back and try this on the other side. So warrior one, start with your hands on your hips. And then bringing elbows towards one another, feel how that activates the muscles right behind your heart, supporting your heart. Squeeze the imaginary block, pull the pelvic floor up. So often we do, a lot of this movement without really thinking about how we're supporting the movement. So really intentional movement here. And then you can come to goalpost arms, elbows a little higher than the shoulders. And then perhaps reach the arms up or interlace fingers. Good. And wherever you are with that whole sequence, then we'll open up warrior two. Back to warrior one. Keep the back leg strong, lean forward, pivot, come standing Tadasana. Okay, we're going to do the whole sequence again, but we're going to add warrior three. So let's begin. We'll begin with left leg forward, right foot back in warrior one. Hands on hips. Hands on hips. And from here, you can bring your arms into goalpost. Or above your, reach up above your head, palms facing one another or hands interlaced. From this strong warrior one, we open into warrior two. Squeezing the muscles behind the heart, then come back to warrior one. Squeeze the legs, squeeze the buttocks, draw the pelvic floor up, squeeze the muscles behind the heart. Okay, so from here, you could bring your hands back to your hips if you want to. It's totally up to you. Try it this way first. And lean forward. Just lean forward. Keep all of those actions and start to bring the back foot, tiptoe the back foot up, and then reach that back leg up into warrior three. Strong standing leg. And reach back. Find warrior one. Next inhale, step forward. Tadasana. We'll try it all on the other side. So now it's right foot forward, left foot back. Find your warrior one. You can start with your hands on your hips. Then goalpost arms. Reach up, Or if it feels okay to you, just come straight up with the arms, finding warrior one, but keep all the actions in the legs and the pelvis. Open into warrior two. Come back into warrior one. Now from your warrior one up to you, you can bring your hands back to your hips, lean forward, and then tiptoe up so you can lift your back leg. Back leg stays strong. It's a standing leg. Just like the standing leg, the leg lifted as you're pressing through your heel. And then reach back, find the floor, warrior one. From this warrior one position now, bring your hands down to the floor around that front foot and step back to downward facing dog. Squeeze the imaginary block between your legs, squeeze your buttocks, lift your pelvic floor, draw your navel back towards your spine. Good. Now from here, bring your left foot in towards the center and reach your right leg out. Start to turn, start to bring the left hip underneath you so that you can stack your right hip on top of your left hip. And then bend through the right knee, press firmly into your left hand to keep the shoulder square. And as you turn back to square up to the floor with your hips, keep your right knee bent, come forward, and bring your right foot between your hands. And then hands on the front thigh. Okay, so back to that first lunge we had, high lunge with the hands on the thigh. Keep the front knee bent and just bring your left knee down towards the floor and back up. Squeeze and lift the pelvic floor. We'll take 3 of these. Now you can always have the blocks. I'm sorry I didn't cue that, but you can always have the blocks to the front of your mat for all of this. A little easier to get from that 3-legged dog. Get the foot forward. So last dip down and press up. And then hands down around the front foot and bring your hips back and come into pyramid. So straighten the front leg any amount, bring your hips back into a pyramid shape. Then heel toe the right foot outside the hands, outside your mat even. Bend through the right knee. You can come down to your left knee if you want, or keep the leg lifted, and then press your tricep, your right tricep into your right knee and resist with your right knee. You'll feel that in your outer hip. If you have the back knee down, lift that leg and swing your right foot back, downward facing dog. Inhale to walk your feet up towards your hands. Halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Bend your knees any amount. Press into your feet and inhale, come up. Hasta Uttasana, arms above the head. Take your time. Let your arms float down. Tadasana. With the palms forward, feel that little action of squeezing behind the heart. Good. Then from here, just step the right foot back, find that high lunge again with your hands on the front thigh, the left thigh. And then with the front knee bent, just any amount. Boy, I'm finding my broken ankle limits me to getting my right knee down very far. So you're going to just hover the knee down towards the floor, and then straighten back up. Hover the back leg, knee down towards the floor, and back up. And I think we've got one more. Squeeze, squeeze in, back up. Good. Then bring your hands down around your front foot, step back to downward facing dog. Bring the right foot in now, and inhale the left leg. And tuck the right hip under, so you can stack your left hip on top of your right hip, or somewhere near there. Then bend through the top knee. Press firmly into the right hand. That'll help you just keep your shoulders square. And again, you could have blocks here for this part, but as you start to square your hips back towards the floor, rounding your back and coming forward, then we're going to try to get the right foot between the hands. It might take a couple goes. Good, and you're in the lunge. High lunge. Here we go. Straighten your front leg and come into a pyramid shape. Squeeze the imaginary block between your legs. And draw your left hip back in space. Then heel toe your left foot outside your mat. You can take your back knee to the floor or leave it lifted and press your tricep, your left tricep into your knee and your knee back into your tricep. And you'll feel this. So either way is fine. You can take the back knee down or lift it off the floor. A little bit more here. 3, 2, 1. And as you straighten to the front leg, you can sweep that leg back, downward facing dog. Next inhale, drop your knees, come to cow. Tops of the feet to the floor, elbows down first, child's pose. Inhale, stand up on your knees. And we're going to take a variation of camel, Ustrasana. So turn your toes under. Bring your hands to your hips, elbows towards one another. Now gather your pelvic floor. Squeeze your buttocks. Squeeze the elbows in towards one another so you feel the space behind the heart, supporting your heart. If you need to pad underneath your knees, you can. And then just keep everything lifted. Draw navel up and in, and just lean back and pop forward. So just lean back, and your lean back will be different than my lean back. So just keep the pelvis area, all the pelvic floor lifted, the buttocks are squeezed. Good. Now, if you find that just leaning back is pretty accessible to you, you can take your hands back to your heels, or you could take one hand back to the heel, same heel, and the opposite arm up in space. Come back. Many variations. So see if taking your hands and taking the palms of your hands to your top of your hips helps you find this a little easier. So instead of having your hands on your hips like sassy girl, bring them right to the back of your, keep you squeezing your buttocks, drawing your pelvic floor up, and lean back and come up, and lean back, come up. So your body is one strong unit here. So this might be a little bit more accessible. So you're squeezing the elbows together. And then if it is, You could try bringing your heels, your hands to your heels. Releasing. Setting your hips down on your heels now, tops of your feet on the floor if that works for you. If not, put a block between your ankles and sit in Virasana. And then come forward back to the cat-cow, to the table. Find a few rounds of cat-cow. Good, and then bring your right knee in towards center and extend your left leg out. Extend your right arm out. And hold this, or vinyasa, knee to elbow. If you're extended out long, or you're on that part of the vinyasa, take your right hand back to the floor, sweep your left leg out to the side, pressing through your heel, and then around to the other side, turning your toes under, pressing through your heel, then sweep back through center, bring your leg out to the right, to the left leg. So you're just suspended in air, and you bring it back around your body. Turn toes under, press through your heel. Take that a few times. Last time you come out to the left, set that foot down, slide it out, slide your hips back towards your heels, elbows on the floor. Inner leg getting longer. And inhale back to center, both knees under your hips. And a few rounds of cat-cow. Go to the other side. So extend the right leg long. Left arm, you can hold or vinyasa. Mindfully on the exhale, drawing everything in, drawing the pelvic floor up, drawing the buttocks towards one another, right? Navel up and in. And then the next time you extend, or if you are extended, take the left hand to the floor, swing the right leg out to the right, and then across midline, turn toes under, press through your heel, swing it out to the right, behind you, turn toes under. Take this a couple times. Till you feel some good fire in the left butt. And then next time, legs out to the right, just set it down and reach your hips back towards your heels, any amount, any amount. Back up, both knees under your hips, and cat-cow. Reaching hips back, slide yourself to your belly and find crocodile here. So you could put your hands underneath your chest. It's kind of an interesting variation, and you can really feel what's happening in your breath. You can have your hands underneath your forehead, but turn your gaze, your internal gaze in. How is it now? Release any tension, any holding now in your buttocks, your legs. Good, then we'll lift the head and bring the arms into Sphinx. So elbows underneath shoulders, tops of the feet on the floor. Draw your navel away from the floor. So draw your tail down towards the short end of your mat. Squeeze the shoulder blades slightly so that you're supporting the heart from behind. Take a few rounds in the Sphinx. And then after a few rounds of breath, as you begin to slowly lower, come down, but reach the hands to the lower ribs, right? And come into a baby cobra. Pull the elbows in towards your side waist and down isometrically. Draw your hands down towards your feet and then lower, turning one cheek or temple to the mat, letting your arms relax. Feel your breath here. Feel the fire in the belly, right? This is hard work. And then turn in the other direction. And then forehead back to center, hands to the low ribs. Draw the elbows in. Feel that support in the back body behind the heart. Isometrically, the hands move down towards the feet. Lift. You could lift legs here as well. Squeeze the buttocks. Lift the pelvic floor. Keep your body nice and long like an arc. So I keep the back of my neck long by just looking at the front of my mat. You could release the hands now, reach the palms up towards the ceiling, squeezing behind the heart, activating those muscles. So not gripping, but activating, bringing the intelligence, our intelligence on board, waking it up, release down, one cheek or temple to the mat. Feel your heart beating. Turn in the opposite direction. Coming back to center now. And now take your hands to your low ribs. Press up through table. Momentarily pausing in table and then bringing hips back towards your heels. Now, if you can't sit on your heels, that's okay. Just maybe put something between your legs or come momentarily to Virasana with a block between your ankles and sit in that fashion, okay? So if you're sitting on your heels, you're going to drop one. Let's drop the left hip to the left and the feet now are to the right. So if you're in a block, it might take a little bit more manipulation to get the block out of the way. So if you can sit on your left hip with your feet to the right. This is Bharadvajasana. And this variation we're going to do is pretty simple. So we'll bring hands over to the left hip, on the floor to the left hip. You could use a block here too. And just come into a twist, twisting to the left. All right. And Bharadvaja was a sage, a Vedic sage, and his son was going to war, and he advised his son that he needed to really follow his own dharma. Right. So this is a pose that supports Mudra Lahara. So draw your pelvic floor up here, and it supports the Anahata chakra, the heart chakra. So working with the stability, our stability, which allows us to have expression, compassion, kindness, right? We have to have the stability in place. Good. Then sweep through the center. You could either take your legs out in front and go to the opposite side, or you could come back to your heels. But now let's go to the other side. So sitting up nice and tall, you're on your right hip, your feet are over to the left, and we'll twist in this direction. Gather your pelvic floor. And you could play here with two, bringing the right hand a little bit further behind and feeling the activation behind your heart and those muscles behind the heart. So our heart supported from the back, so we don't just spill it out indiscriminately in the world, but it's supported from the back muscles, lifting tall through the crown of your head. Following your own dharma, your own truth. Then slowly release, unwind, take your legs long. Dandasana with the hands behind. Now, can you gather your pelvic floor here? Squeeze your buttocks. Find that action. And then release a little bit. So you're just engaged enough. You're not gripping, but you're engaged. And you know your power. You can feel your power. If you can maintain the position of your length in your back, you could come forward. And if you can maintain the length through your back, you could tuck in with the chin. And wherever you are, slide your hips towards your heels and come down onto your back. And bring your knees either in towards your chest. You have to moderate yourself about your abdominal engagement, or keep your knees over your hips and release your hands behind your head. And just take a couple rounds of breath here, really gathering at your core. So your pelvic floor, your navel up and in, your hip pointers in towards one another. And then the elbows stay wide. We're going to come into a variation of the bicycle movement that we do a lot. But as I lift my upper body and turn towards my left leg, my right leg will go straight, but I want to think about my shoulder and my knee connecting. And they're not even close, but instead of the elbow coming over, keep your elbows wide and think about your shoulder coming towards your left knee. And then you come back to center and then opposite direction. So left leg's going long, left shoulder towards right knee. And then you'll come back. And you're going to do that, I don't know, maybe 6 times, maybe 3 times. It's a lot of work. It feels like a lot of work to me. So shoulder towards opposite knee, and then that same leg goes long, and then back to center. And keep the elbows wide. And notice if you're doing the work in your neck, keep your pelvic floor lifted. Keep your hip pointers coming in towards one another, strength through your core. becoming does take some work. It takes courage. It also takes kindness and compassion, self-compassion. If you know anyone who's a young adult right now, you've probably witnessed that in them. Once you've done an even number, set your head back down on the floor, your feet back down on the floor. Take a few cat-cow or pelvic tilts here. And then let's take figure 4, left ankle on right knee. Bring the knees into the chest. Lace your left hand through the space if you want. But really, or move your knees back and forth. Just feel some lengthening on the outside of the left hip, the left buttocks. The other side. And then any variation of happy baby. So my favorite is my forearms underneath my knees. I clasp my hands, hand on wrist, and I just allow my back to spread wide. I'm going to, all the musculature that we've been working with, just let it relax now. Relax, lengthen, relax, relax. You really feel the belly breath here as the legs are in close. You take that diaphragmatic breath and your belly presses against your thighs. And on your exhale, nice release. You could also take the outsides of the feet with your hands, or one at a time. That's kind of nice sometimes too, just a one knee at a time. Happy baby variation. Great. And then come back to position of comfort. Feet as wide as the edges of your mat, and a few windshield wipers. How is it now? Notice the settling. You might finish with a twist. If you finish with a twist, give the same amount of time to both sides. You can then find your favorite Shavasana shape, either just right out into a traditional Shavasana, block underneath the sacrum for supported shoulder stand or supported bridge, legs up the wall. Finding some stillness. Finding your going inside and looking at your own seed as you become.
I guess when I've been thinking, some memories just little vanities and just go with the season. This is what we aim to do.
Resting in Shavasana, softening the eyes. As you gaze inward to that prayerful moment before emerging, like the seed, we're always emerging, right? There's always birthing and deathing. So what wants to emerge right now? What wants to come into full fruition, or at least begin to grow and blossom in you? As we traditionally greet one another with the namaste, which means I see you, you see me, I see your brilliance. I see, let us look for in ourselves and each other what wants to blossom, what wants to emerge, and find that support for one another. So namaste, I see you, I see your brilliance.